Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another episode of Jacob Walks Over a Bridge. I'm Jacob, currently walking over a bridge, and I guess I have some controversial opinions. I don't know, I guess I don't voice them so often, even in this safe space, my own podcast, away from all the censors of traditional media. I guess there are things I guess, well, why don't I talk about them? And I guess today, specifically, now that I'm walking over the Triborough Bridge, specifically selected for the lower possibility of walking past just anyone, here are some of my opinions, ideas, I guess, that I hold dear as if they were facts, personal facts, if you will. Let's start right off the bat. I guess there's gonna be a bit of a Hollywood slant to all this. Yeah, the cricket Hollywood elite. First things first. If Tom Hanks had died from COVID back in 2020, I think people would have taken COVID a lot more seriously. And I mean, that's not just a random name thrown out there for all of y'all who have a difficult time remembering. He was one of the first big celebrity cases of COVID to emerge early on in the pandemic. I believe he and his wife got while they were in Australia, I think, or something like that. And it was a whole big to-do. Everyone was on Tom Hanks' watch. And he survived. He got through it okay. There was even, I think he hosted one of the remote episodes of SNL just to show, hey, look, I'm still alive. But imagine if he hadn't survived, especially that early on in the pandemic when people initially were really taking things seriously. It would have been a lot different, I think, because, I'm not totally up to date on Tom Hanks' approval ratings among the left and the right. I think the left likes him, not really being of the conservative persuasion. I can't speak for how they view him, but imagine if he hadn't survived, if he had died from COVID, one of the first cases that people heard of, one of the first deaths that people might have heard of. It's Tom Hanks. He's a very famous actor. He's been in a lot of movies. Well known. I'll say everyone likes him. Just seems like an all-around nice guy. But imagine if he, that would have been a shock, a blow. If Tom Hanks can get it, I could get it. If Tom Hanks could die, I could die, would be what people would think. But he survived against all odds. Well, he probably has really good health insurance. Or if he was in Australia, I'm sure he was getting some real good socialized medicine. But if he had succumbed to his infection, or his wife even, I bet people would have taken things more seriously. People would have said, oh, I'm going to wear a mask, or I can't remember if people were wearing masks or not at that point. It's a confusing timeline when it comes to mask wearing, what people were told, what was actually right, ulterior motives on all sides. But people might not have gathered or gone out, or might have taken a couple more precautions, and that might have changed the trajectory of where things ended up in the immediate aftermath of Tom Hanks's infection and beyond. I mean, I'm not wishing that he died necessarily. I'm glad to have him around. I don't wish death on anyone, even my worst enemies, of which I have many. But you have to wonder if he had died, things might have turned out a little bit differently. And I will just say, I am happy I put on sunscreen. I'm not the best at skin care, but walking outside now, I'm on, not much coverage here on the Triborough Bridge, and it's a nice, bright, sunny day. It seemed like it was cloudy at first, but the sun's really come out now with a vengeance, and it's right in the middle of the day, 1:08, and it's good to have a little protection. I'm getting better at keeping care of myself, and I guess that sounded like a transition that a professional podcaster would use to transition to some kind of sponsorship. This was sponsored by, I don't know, Sephora. They must have some sort of skincare line for protecting the skin from the sun. Dumb people are still biking on here, when they're not supposed to. One of these days, someone's gonna fall off because of a bike incident. But I still have yet to procure a sponsorship. If you want to sponsor this podcast, maybe even push it out to a 5th season, let me know. Get in touch with my people. My people being me. I am my people. So get in touch. But nice day. Really makes you want to go for a swim, which doesn't happen to me very often. I'm not really one for swimming. I'm not the best. Take after my father, but for different reasons. But back to my closely held opinions. It's nice to clear the air on the Tom Hanks thing. That's something that I've always felt, always being for the last 2 years, for a while. Obviously you can't, no idea what's going on with people again just biking on here. They're not supposed to on a city bike. If I should have just pretended that I had, I've my earbuds in. Should have pretended like I couldn't hear his little bell make him get off and walk like a normal person should. I guess the only thing though would he'd be so close behind me that at that point he'd just be trailing me and a little too close for comfort, and he'd just be annoyed at me, and no winning. I mean, every time I walk over this bridge, I just get mad when people don't do what they're supposed to do. People often have a tendency to do what's convenient for them and little else, which I guess kind of leads to the next point I want to make. Something that I guess might possibly even just answer a question that lots of people have asked, why the Hollywood elite, why do the vast majority of them skew to the left politically? Oftentimes you'll see prominent celebrities go and campaign for Democrats or will champion what would be considered left-leaning social causes. You have to wonder why. So I guess people, on the right, the thinking must be that they're trying to pander to that side, and but that's only roughly half of the country, and there are some famous right-leaning Republicans or right-leaning conservative celebrities, but at the same time, their numbers are vastly. They're I wouldn't say overmatched, but they are outnumbered. That's the word. And think about what it takes to be an actor, right? Let's say you're Tom Hanks, and you have a role you're preparing for. Let's say when he was going to be, what was it? What was the Miracle on the Hudson? Sully. He was Captain Sully Sullenberger or whatever his name is. Good guy, from what I understand. I don't know if he's personally tried to profit off of just landing a plane on the Hudson, or if people have tried to use him. I mean, he hasn't been so much around lately. I know he did a big campaign for mental health awareness, so good for him. But imagine you're Tom Hanks and you are trying to prepare for that role. You have to put yourself into Captain Sullenberger's shoes. How does he think? How does he act? How does he do really anything? So you have to take that into consideration, and to do that requires a great amount of empathy. Trying to understand how other people feel and changing your behavior to accommodate those feelings. And that is one of the most important skills to have as an actor, is to be able to literally put yourself into someone else's shoes. That's how you stop being the person you are. Tom Hanks is not Tom Hanks when he's in every movie he's in. Tom Hanks becomes whatever character he's playing. So when you think about it, when they are very well versed in that skill and taking on different roles, how that influences the rest of their life. Because despite my best efforts, it's hard for me sometimes to stop. I'm an editor by trade, and it's hard for me to turn off the editor part of my brain all the time. Especially if I'm reading text messages, a spelling error might pop out or be extra glaring, or if I'm reading a menu, just having something indented that doesn't align with all the other menu items, or if there's they're missing a bullet, or there's something wrong with it. Obviously they might not have had their menu read by a professional editor. Those sorts of things jump out at me, and despite my best efforts, I notice them, whether I'd like to or not. I'd love to go back to a time when those sorts of things didn't just jump out at me like they do now. Love to go back and do that, but at the same time, that's what happens when you become a professional anything. I imagine if you were a professional architect, you might pass an interesting looking house and wonder how they built it. Or if you were you're a coder, you were a UX developer, and you go to a website, you can't help but marvel at how either great or awful the user experience is when you are interacting with the website. So when it comes to actors, if one of their most important skills is understanding how other people think and feel, I feel that a lot of the quote-unquote left-leaning causes require one to really put themselves into other people's shoes and see how they feel. Like, for instance, let's take immigration rights. Trying to put yourself in the shoes of the people emigrating here, wondering why are they emigrating here? How are they doing that? What are they leaving behind? What's going through their mind as they're trying to either come here legally or not? And those not coming here, legally probably have a lot different things going through their heads and are willing to put a lot more on the line just to get to wherever they're going. And so as an actor, someone who tries to understand how people think and feel for a living, I feel I mean, I'm making them sound like psychologists. I don't think actors are psychologists by any stretch, but I think that there's an understanding that, you know, they may not even realize it, you know, or think this is why I support this cause or I support this politician. It's because the way they think and do things kind of mirrors how I think and do things. So that's just my opinion. Obviously everyone's different. I'm sure the ultimate reasons why Tom Hanks supports whatever causes he supports the reasons are known only to him and maybe his wife, or or he himself may not know. This is just my understanding of, or not understanding, I would say, it's just my 2 cents. I'm not trying to say that all folks who believe in conservative causes are by default unempathetic. I believe they have a different sense of, or what they consider empathy may not be what other people might. And I guess, you know, you're really in trouble in a country when words that should mean one thing are interpreted by people to mean 2 different things. And, you know, the right might say, oh, you're not thinking about the Americans who are affected by this or that, while you're really concerned about the immigrants. Or, you know, with abortion, you know, they have, I mean, abortion's a whole other story. I think I've talked about that in a previous episode, just the ethics involved in that and what one considers ethical and moral. Depends on how you view certain, you know, functions of life. So I don't consider, you know, I guess that's also the thing, that this is just what I think. And while I think the world would be a much better place if more people thought the way that I do, 100% would be. World peace like that, you know, snap of the finger. It's also easy to forget that not everyone thinks the way that I do, and that a lot of people do. Everyone does not think the way that I do. So the thinking that, you know, the opinions provided on this podcast are, I guess, then a unique opportunity to delve into my mind and see how I'm thinking. So people can understand the decisions that I make and do, just as I'm trying to interpret why actors do what they do. I'm yawning. I don't know why. I slept all right last night. Oh, and I slept till like 9 this morning, which for me, that's not necessarily a miracle. I mean, I probably put my phone down, or, you know, closer to 1 a.m. than I would have liked. So I guess maybe I got 8 hours of sleep at some point today, but the fact that I didn't automatically try to wake up whenever I have my alarm set. I mean, I usually go through different periods of, you know, weeks, stretches where I'll sleep well, sleep not as well, sleep well, not as well. So I am trying to get out of a sleep slump. Hopefully going for a nice 20-mile walk will do the trick. Doesn't always, but still yawning. But I'm making my, going back to controversial opinions, I guess I could stop it there. I'm making my final descent now into Astoria, Queens, and don't know if I have enough time to really dive into anything else that would cause some controversies. I mean, I made it sound like I have all of these deeply held, twisted thoughts. I don't think that's true. I think, for the most part, I have a fairly average view of the universe, but not always the case. It's the little things here or there, and maybe everyone agrees with me that if Tom Hanks had died, I'm not talking about Tom Hanks a lot this episode, but if Tom Hanks, if you're listening, hi, thank you for being the inspiration for 20 plus minutes of talking. But what was I saying? Maybe everyone else believes the same thing, or maybe they don't believe it now necessarily, but after hearing this and hearing me make whatever arguments I'm making, they'd be like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. They just don't know it yet. Takes someone with a unique mind to put things into perspective. Even if they say thank you, still mad. Yeah. But maybe these things aren't controversial, but I think when you're talking about the death of anyone in a hypothetical sense, that is kind of controversial, or at least needs to be not censored. I'm not trying to censor myself, but because that can get real dicey, especially like, let's say, people who say, they talking about the death of politicians on social media, the next day they're going to have the FBI knocking at their door. So, not wishing death on anyone, and that shouldn't be wished on anyone. I don't think that capital punishment is right for anyone. But for hypothetical discussions on podcasts with interesting hosts, I can allow it just this one time. But with that, I am nearing the end of the bridge. As always, it's a pleasure. It has been a pleasure. I can't talk straight. Yeah, I'll go get some pita bread and some. I've just been thinking about bubble tea. I've had bubble tea the last 2 days. Yesterday, it was a whole other story, which I can go into another time. But I made sure to pack the loyalty card I have for a place in a story that I haven't brought with me in a while. Been meaning to. I'm almost close to my free bubble tea, so I better use it. I hope they still take it. It's been a while since I've tried to get a stamp. But I digress, as I'm wont to do. So, might as well say now before something else comes up and I go off on another long tangent. Good day and good night.